This is Weekly Woman by Jubilance for PMS. Well, welcome, Larissa. It is so nice to have you on the podcast. Thanks for being on.
No, thank you for having me.
Yes, so you're calling in from Australia with your amazing accent. Where in Australia are you?
So I am on the East Coast in New South Wales. I guess the most well-known area close to me would be Byron Bay, if you've heard of that.
Oh, yes, I have.
Yeah, I think it's pretty well established on the map. So I am 15 minutes south of there. Um, yeah, beautiful and sunny here most of the year. So pretty blessed to live in this little pocket of the world.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. I grew up in Southern California in San Diego, so it was very much similar. I don't know why I left, but
I was about to ask you that. Why did you leave?
I don't know. It's a good question. I live in New York now, so
Oh, wow.
the
Gosh,
weather
that's a huge
shifts.
change.
It is, but I do love it. So there's so
Mm,
much going
mm.
on.
Oh, I'd love to get to New York one day.
Yeah. Oh, you gotta come.
I've always wanted to do a white Christmas there.
Oh,
That's on my bucket list.
I always found that strange because I grew up as you did with like palm trees at Christmas and like you'd go to the beach on Christmas because it's summertime there too for you guys.
Yeah, we normally have like a hot Christmas with like barbecues, throw a shrimp on the barbie kind of thing. Very typical Australian Christmas, but I suppose all the Christmas movies we see, like Home Alone, Elf, all of those great Christmas movies, they're all, New York, White Christmas. I've always wanted one of those.
Yeah, it's good and bad. Yeah, I do love that like California warm Christmas, but and yours sounds like idyllic. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. We're pretty lucky here.
Now, you started Period People. Can you tell me a little
Mhm.
bit about what that is and how it came to be?
Yeah, so I still don't quite know what I'm going to do with it.
Mm.
But I pretty much started it after being diagnosed with endometriosis myself a few years ago. And it's something I talk to, I guess I'm an osteopath, so I'm an allied health professional. I talk to my patients about it a lot. I'm just sharing stories with other girls that I know. And I kind of just started it one day to sort of start sharing information that my patients have found helpful, with the occasional little joke or meme in there. It's a bit of a mixed bag at the moment, but I'm really hooked on doing it and connecting with the people in that community. I guess the main objectives that I'm trying to stick to are sharing sort of up to date news, scientific research, that kind of thing, in the menstrual health space, and just presenting it to people in a, I guess, easy to digest form. Um, yeah, that's pretty much what it is so far. Just about, yeah, creating a nice community and yeah.
It's so helpful that you can share that with your patients, but then also with this broader community. Can you tell us exactly what is endometriosis for all of our
Mm.
listeners?
Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know what endometriosis or endo is, it's typically described as a condition that people who menstruate often experience. Um, and it's a condition where, so you've got the endometrium, which is the lining of the uterus. So tissue similar to the lining of the endometrium can grow outside of the body, sorry, outside of the uterus in different parts of the body. So it's been sort of around the ovaries, the abdomen. Some people can have it in the thorax, lower back, that kind of thing, and it can cause a fair bit of pain with the menstrual cycle. It's pretty painful. I think the World Health Organization has described it as one of the top 10 most painful conditions, which doesn't surprise me. Um, yeah.
Oh, the pain we go through as women just with our cramps. My sister also has endo, so
Oh, really?
I know how difficult it is and how much pain she is in every month, which is
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah, and so many people experience pain, at different times throughout the cycle. Like I've had patients that they might get 2 or 3 pain-free days a month, and that's just horrible to think of. There's no cure for it. We don't have the best medical treatment for it. We're trying, but
Mm.
at the moment, there's not much to work with.
Yeah. And you said that there's so much on your platform, that there's so much gaslighting of women of like
Mm,
what this is. I know it took my sister like many tries to get diagnosed. Like she went to the hospital at one point and they were like, take some Tylenol.
mm.
But you said on your platform that you had to go to 4 GPs before you were able to get diagnosed. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for GPs, I guess that journey started, I must have been maybe 14 or 15. And I think that was not long after I started getting my first periods, and being in quite a bit of pain. I remember our first point of contact, my mum and I, that was our family GP, who was a female, and you know, love her. She's a great GP, but yeah, straight away she was like, "Oh, that's fine. Period pain's normal. You're 14, you're 15.
Mhm.
I'll put you on the pill." So then it was okay for a bit. Got into university, got into my 20s, and that pain started getting progressively worse over sort of a period of 1 to 2 years. And that was when it was during COVID actually, and I was like, okay, I've got a little bit of time to deal with this. Let's get the ball rolling. So yeah, basically booked an appointment with a GP. I think the first one was like take naprogesic. I don't know. Do you guys have that in America?
I don't know what that is.
It's oh, it's I guess it's like a pain relief over the counter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, naprogesic. That's kind of what we're given in Australia, or just Panadol, ibuprofen.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
that's what we usually take.
yeah, yeah.
My
So I was
doll.
just told. Yeah, yeah. So I was just told to take that, and that was frustrating because I think we've all had that experience as women when we've had menstrual pain. It's like, oh, great, I didn't know that already.
Mhm.
Thanks. But
Yeah.
yeah, third doctor was interesting. So that was when I sort of went in and requested, I'd done a little bit of research by this point, and I'd requested a referral to see a gynecologist. Um, and this doctor flat out refused it. And I ended up later having to request his notes to send to the gynecologist. And he had actually called me hysterical,
Mhm.
like I was in so much pain. So yeah, that was interesting. Fourth doctor finally wrote me the referral, but said it's probably not endometriosis, it's probably just period pain. Um, so that whole process was incredibly frustrating. I think it probably took a year to get to the gynecologist's office, just with, doctor wait times, COVID, and all of that, and me working up the courage between each appointment to trudge myself back to the doctor's office and kind of start again. Um, but yeah, it was incredibly frustrating. And I know so many other people have had or are having similar experiences. Um, and yeah, it's just incredibly frustrating.
That's so tough, especially when you're in the
Mm,
medical field yourself. So you kind of know how the system works in a way, or
yeah.
know how to do the research, because so many women
Mm,
just don't even know how to like go about asking these questions. So what should women do if they feel like they might have endo?
yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question. And even me being from the medical profession, I know how to navigate that system, and I found it incredibly challenging and complex. So that kind of made me think, well, imagine how hard this is to everyday people who don't have that knowledge or don't have, I guess, those pathways or, quick access to referrals. Um, I guess when people come to me with menstrual pain or pelvic pain and that kind of thing, a lot of my job is sort of holding their hand and advocating them throughout that process.
Mm.
So making sure that they're informed, they've got the right resources, and they're referred to the right people to streamline that process and reduce waiting times. Um, it sounds, I mean, to me, it sounds really simple because it's, potentially I have that knowledge, but a lot of people don't. And it can, help them get a quicker diagnosis and therefore help them get, I guess, the care or treatment they need,
Mhm.
really.
That's so helpful. I would definitely want you as my doctor. That's so, or osteopath. That's great that you're able to help them and kind of hold their hand, as you kind of know now, like with pelvic pain, this is something to take seriously.
Mm,
Um,
absolutely.
Now, do you have any like idea of why endo and menstruation in general is still such a taboo? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's so tricky to believe, like in 2023, that we're still having to have this conversation. But the reality is that we are. Um, yeah, it just is what it is. And I was thinking about this before. I have a friend and she works in public health. And she actually wrote one of her papers on menstrual taboos in Nepal, where women are still today confined to menstrual huts during their cycle. Have you heard of that at all?
Yes, it is
Yeah,
wild. I can't believe that still happens.
yeah. And I was sort of reading about that and historically how in a lot of cultures women have been sort of shamed or put aside when we're experiencing our period. Um, obviously in Western societies that's not happening today. I think it just really stems from that sort of deep misogynistic culture. Um, we still have that in our day-to-day lives. We still have that in Western medicine. Um, it's something that's not going away tomorrow, and it's something that we just have to keep fighting for every single day. But I think that's where it stems from. And a
Yeah,
lot of things, I guess, women's health, menstrual health, they're not spoken about enough. Um, it just needs to be more normalized.
yeah, which I think is great that you have this platform that you're helping to normalize it and to tell your patients as well. Just to like start a dialogue and begin this conversation. Um, I before I started this job at Jubilance, I actually was like, oh my God, menstruation. Like I can't say this word. I can't buy tampons. Like if there's like a male at the checkout. But now I'm like, yeah, I can say everything. But I know that that taboo is hard to break. But
Yeah.
just the more that we can talk about it, the more we can normalize it.
Yeah, and like still to this day, like when I go to the supermarket to get tampons or whatever it is I need, you still have this weird feeling of shame and you catch yourself having it. And I'm like, I run this platform, like I'm supposed to be the complete opposite of this. Um, we just, I don't know why it still exists. You still feel, they still call it, what do they call it? Feminine hygiene in the
Uh-huh.
supermarket. It's like, just change it to menstrual health or, yeah.
Exactly. I know I dropped a period or not a period. I dropped a tampon in front of someone the other day and I was like, oh my God. But then I was like, wait, why do I care? Like, why
Yeah,
does this matter?
yeah, and it's like if that person cares, that's their problem. Like I recently, I'd say in the last year or two, I've really started discussing like my period and endometriosis and that kind of thing openly. It kind of started with, I guess, immediate family, friends, and that kind of thing. And I found that every time I started talking about it, I got a little bit stronger in saying it. And it's gotten to the point now where I'm sort of like, if anyone has an issue with that, that's their problem. Just yesterday, I was in a car with my male colleague on the way to a job, and I was like, I've got really bad PMS today and I really don't want to be here. And I'm probably going to go work from home this afternoon, just letting you know. And I just think we need to be brave and have those conversations. Most people are okay with it.
Mhm. How was he with it? Because he's in healthcare himself. Was he
Yeah, he was fine. He didn't blink an eye.
positive?
I think he saw me eating all the sugary snacks on the way to the job, and he was like, "Oh, something's going on here."
Yeah, perfect. That's great. And so how would you advise women and menstruators to advocate for themselves? What should we be doing to talk a little bit more about menstruation and endo?
Mm. It's it's a really tricky topic because it is still we still receive so much pushback, particularly if you're someone who's trying to get a diagnosis or trying to get answers for what you might be experiencing pain. Um, my biggest tip would be, and I hate that we have to do this, but we really have to take it upon ourselves to do our research and understand what's normal and what's not. Um, and know our own bodies and learn to sort of push back and advocate for ourselves, whether that means getting a support person on board, seeking help from a different medical practitioner, going back and saying, sorry, I don't agree. And those things are all really hard. They're so much easier said than done. But I do really think it comes down to really just backing yourself and also just arming yourself with as much knowledge as you can. When I was sort of, I guess, seeking my diagnosis and had an idea that I might have endo, um, I read a few books. I read lots of published research papers. I looked at lots of government resources. There was a lot of research I did to kind of be like, okay, I think I might have this. If I had have gone into any of my appointments not armed with that information, I potentially would still be, at square one, with no diagnosis, still wondering what was going on. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, and I hate that we have to do our own research, but that's the unfortunate reality that we're existing in right now.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great advice. What are those books that you read, just so we can our audience can know what to read?
There's a really, and I'm not sure if it's available in the US, but there's a book in Australia called How to Endo
Huh.
by Bridget Hustwaite. I think I might have said her surname wrong. And there was another one by Dr. Jolene Byton. Have you heard of? She's based in the US.
Mhm.
I can't
I'll
remember
have
what
to
that
look
one's
it
called.
up. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a really great book in Australia called How to Endo. She's a radio presenter in Australia,
Mm.
and she suffers from endo. She's got quite a big platform in Australia. But yeah, she wrote a book, and that was one of the first things I picked up, actually.
Wow.
Um, and it was amazing. It was even like it had a list of questions to ask a doctor or a list of questions to ask a gynecologist going into an appointment. So if it's available in the US, I'd really recommend it. It was like a Bible, and not just for endometriosis, like even just navigating pelvic pain or
Mm.
pain with menstruation. It was, yeah, I'm forever grateful to that book.
Wow, that sounds so helpful. That list of questions would
Mm,
be great because, like, how do you even form those questions after you've done this research if you're not a medical
yeah,
person? Or just like, how do you navigate like this pain at the same time of figuring that out? That sounds really helpful.
yeah, definitely recommend reading that one. It's really good.
And Larissa, the question that we always ask on this podcast is, what is your definition of womanhood?
Mm. It's a really tricky question, isn't it?
Mm.
It's very personal. I would say womanhood to me, it's so much more than I guess the typical physical characteristics that we're known as for being women. Um, womanhood for me is probably learning to take my seat at a table that wasn't always designed for women. Learning to back myself, learning to stand up for myself, and finding, I guess, space for me, in a world that was essentially designed for men. That's
Mhm.
my definition of womanhood.
Yeah, I think that's great. And everything about what you've been saying about endo and your diagnosis and kind of this misogynistic worldview, but taking that seat at that table,
Mm.
and going for it and figuring everything out yourself. I think that's great. Great definition. Larissa,
Thank
is
you.
there anything else you'd like to add today? It certainly is very helpful to a lot of women
Yeah,
in the
great.
US. So, yeah, thank you for being on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank
I'm
you
just
so much for having me.